Friends, I'm Spehar, the host of Under the Desk News on TikTok, taking complicated, often politicized issues and breaking them down into easy to understand truths. I am absolutely thrilled to be back talking with two of my friends and colleagues, Dr. Nancy Lin and Kristy Morrell, about nourishing your physical heart health, but also nourishing your love for cooking. When you hear the saying, cook with your heart, you are most likely conjuring images of like painted wooden decor at your local Home Goods, or maybe even better, picturing your grandmother smiling as she stirs a pot of her world famous sauce. It's clinically proven that cooking with love not only inspires you to cook more often, but allows your body to absorb more of the nutrients from the food. And that is part of how it works. Happy eating is healthy eating. But what we often miss when focusing on dietary restrictions, say after an adverse health diagnosis, is the love that we bring to preparing food. So that's what we're going to explore today. How food affects your heart, how to fuel optimal health, and how to mitigate the symptoms of chronic illness while enjoying the food that you're cooking. We're going to be focusing on micronutrients, literally just fruits and vegetables, no fancy supplements or fad diets yet, just literally this came out of the ground and it's widely available at my farmer's market or grocery store. It has ingredients that I understand, and it will help unlock the physical, mental, and heart healthy feelings. Because again, it's not like $1 million silver bullet. Everyone's going to have a different plan that works for them, but we can do it with just the things that we eat and see every day. So first guest that I want to introduce you to is Dr. Nancy Lin, a holistic nutritionist, the author of Breaking the Bad and 21 Days to a Leaner, More Energetic Team for You, a yoga and fitness coach, one of my favorite people to text with on Instagram, and a lover of cooking. Dr. Nancy, before we get to the dinner table, talk to me about setting a mentality for loving food after getting an adverse health, let's say heart health diagnosis.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I'm so excited. After something very traumatic like an event with your heart, you want to recover, but you also want to reduce your risk for any future heart issues. You are how you eat, but you are how you live. And that's something I write about in my book, Breaking the Bad. It's very important to be able to look and take a gander, take a notice of how you are approaching your life. Are you just passing through and going through the motions, doing what's easy? Or are you really mindful in what you select to eat and how you move your body, how you manage your stress? So it's absolutely imperative that you start to open your eyes and become alive and awaken by the things that you do and take responsibility for that, because heart disease is 100%, I'm going to say it, it's most close to 100% preventable. There are some genetic factors, yes, but we have the ability within one generation to turn on or off the keys that are actually preventing us from heart disease or activating the heart disease. So we can do things to reduce the risk as well as recover from any kind of heart issues.
That is really, it's just like shocking and exciting to hear that within a generation we can reverse this epidemic, because a adverse heart health diagnosis is not really that rare right now. It's a huge crisis facing many folks from all different kinds of walks, facing women especially. How big a role is diet playing in that?
Diet plays a very, very big role in not just heart health, but obesity, excess weight gain, blood pressure, diabetes, and our ability to prevent that. We have the ability to raise our heart health in just how we breathe. We have that, let that be our superpower. We can actually control how the blood flows in and out of our bloodstream. It's crazy, but it's true. So knowing that we are what we think, if we react to a certain event or trauma or something, a danger coming, we really are very primitively smart to be able to control the blood flow so that we can run away from danger. And equally, if we just kind of hone in and tweak all the things that aren't good for us, like the processed foods and all the sugar-laden foods and things like that, then we can inch closer, maybe even quantum leap closer to being as healthy as possible.
In a word, we can reverse it.
Yes, we can. And science shows it over and over again. And what you need to really hone in on, what are the things that you should be doing? Not necessarily what shouldn't you be doing, but how can we change the bad habits and get to a place of good? So you want to take out things like smoking, and you want to raise your body movement. You want to start exercising more. You want to eat more fibrous foods, foods with fiber, lower your intake of saturated fats, foods that have been processed, like deli meats and your bacons and your sausages, all of the fun foods that come in packages. You want to just start to think of yourself as a bunny, eat like a bunny, and grow your own foods, or just eat more natural things without labels.
Right, because the labeled food is really something that's come about as a means of convenience, and now with these health diagnoses, certainly no longer convenient. So we'll step away from that and get back to just, spending more time with our food and more time enjoying it.
Yeah.
Kristy, registered dietitian and nutritional educator, sports dietitian at the University of Southern California. Oh my God, you would think I'm in LA. Has your own practice teaching a family approach to nutrition that doesn't rely on deprivation, but instead teaches the importance of mindful eating, moderation, and movement. Kristy, when we think about a heart healthy diet, we aren't usually thinking of young people, like I'm thinking of like my grandmother, my mom, like people who I'm trying to protect their heart now as they're aging. But you're working with young athletes a lot. How much do you center heart health in a young athlete's diet?
Actually, when I consult with every athlete, I talk about the importance of not just what they're eating for performance, but eating for a lifetime. Because the truth is, they're developing habits now. And just because they may think they get away with it because they're training 20 hours a week, they're not going to. And I talk a lot about saturated fat and making healthy choices, and not just because they worked out that they can just go and eat a bunch of hamburgers and french fries and milkshakes, and still be very lean, but what's happening on the inside. And again, I think it's so important because they're not going to be an athlete forever. And so we really talk about healthy recipes that they can cook, what they're looking for when they're eating out. Yes, they're going to have their fun, but they can keep it in moderation, and really focusing on getting a lot of fiber. We talk a lot about inflammation. And so if you're eating a lot of fried foods and all those heavier saturated fat foods, that's going to increase your inflammation. And we also know that inflammation is the root cause of a lot of injuries. So when we start talking injuries to an athlete, then they listen, and
Right.
they're much more, their buy-in is greater for sure than just eat your fruits and vegetables, or like, yeah, I've heard that before. But if you educate them on the why, then they really do want to do better with what they're eating.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And if folks are listening at home, I always advise people to do this too. Like, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Think about what the win is for you, what makes sense for you, what's going to motivate you, what are you actually trying to get to the root of? Because for like an athlete, talking to them about the potential for an injury, more impactful than talking to them about the fact that, you're not going to be playing football forever, so you might as well start a healthy diet now. They're like, okay, but right now I benefit from injury reduction.
Exactly.
Now, I've read a lot of disordered eating is still an epidemic with young people, especially teens who use social media, which of course is everywhere. What kind of effect can disordered eating have on heart development for young folks?
A lot. It can slow their heart rate down a lot. It does damage, absolutely, because they're expecting their body to go full force. And if they're not consuming enough calories, or they're binging and purging, that also is a high stress on the heart. And we, for example, at USC, we have a optimal performance team that works specifically with the eating disorder population of athletes, and helping them, educate them on the dangers. And if we have to pull them from activity, that's what we have to do, because of the heart being so affected. And we follow their EKGs often to make sure that they're doing well and they're okay to perform, because again, they're pushing their limits to such a high volume of intensity, and if their heart is not in a good place. So yes, it's a unfortunately, COVID has really catapulted this disease in a way that I've never seen before. More and more athletes are struggling, both men and women. So talking a lot to them about the dangers of what this is doing to their health and their heart in general.
Is there any advice for parents who might be listening right now, just things that they can be doing to feed their children a heart healthy diet, like stuff they could immediately start implementing or thinking about?
I love this question. This could be an hour conversation because this is passionate of mine with working with families and kids. And I think we've gotten to the point of, as a parent, education about what kind of snacks to have at home. Because the truth is, if you have a pantry full of all processed food and all processed sugars, that's what they're going to go for. And so if you can start implementing like fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, things that are actually going to fill them up and be heart healthy, nuts and seeds are so good for you, versus another bag of pirate's booty, versus another bag of goldfish. And they're just, and kids need the energy. And so one bag of goldfish is like air to them. So they're going to have like 3 or 4. And then maybe
Right.
they want sugar. And so I think as a parent, I would really just evaluate your pantry and look at like, what kind of snacks do I have when my child comes home from school? What am I packing them at lunch? Am I making sure that there's lots of color in their lunch? Or is it just all brown and white foods? Like, those kinds of things. And it's never too late. I've worked with families who, of course, the sooner the better that you can start educating and providing those things, and they're just used to it, then it's not a big deal. Even later, though, that you can always turn things around. And I think if they understood the why they're doing this versus I'm not taking away, I'm going to put in something that's even better and keep you satiated longer and help with their energy. Because again, like that's a huge part of kids' development too. So, so yes, that's a very near and dear one to me because I think it's so important that parents really start looking at what kinds of foods they're buying.
I know my brother, when we revealed to him that pumpkin seeds are a good source of protein, he suddenly was very interested in pumpkin seeds where he wasn't previously. So sometimes it's just finding like cool, fun facts about the food because, all the bros are into protein, everything now. So once he found out pumpkin seeds had protein, he was excited about it. Like there's just so much that we can do to make it cool for them and make it, like you said, help them understand the why. So much of being a good eater and enjoying food is knowing where it comes from, how to grow it, how to prepare it, why it tastes the way it does, how it makes you feel the way that you want to. And we just keep doing that, right? Like I would tell him that carrots make your eyesight better. All of a sudden he wants carrots. Like kids do respond to these things, even if we think they're silly because they happen to us or whatever, but it sounds like it's still relevant advice.
Yes, very much so. Absolutely.
Now, talking about vitamin deficiencies, just question for both of y'all. And obviously this plays a part into heart health too. It's winter. Some of us are in New York right now in the doom and gloom, and I'm not getting that vitamin D that I get when I'm in Southern California and enjoying like outside time a ton. What are your suggestions for supplementing vitamin D? Why is it so important to make sure your vitamin D levels are high? Maybe start with Kristy.
Well, first, the immune system is very much a key factor in having your high vitamin, like your vitamin D levels at an optimal level, even a little bit higher, ideally. And when we talk about athletes, it's very interesting. We test all of our athletes' vitamin D levels, and what we're finding and what we know now is that from a injury prevention, as well as if you are injured and you're finding that I'm having a hard time recovering, I'm not healing, most often they're vitamin D deficient. So immune function for sure. And then also just in general, overall health and well-being, vitamin D is a huge component. And the truth is that a lot of people don't know what their vitamin D levels are. And again, I live in Southern California and mine were 19. I had no idea. And I feel like I eat a good amount of vitamin D, high levels of vitamin D in my food. So I think the best thing to do is just start with a baseline, understand where you're at, and then supplement vitamin D3, probably around 5,000. And then Dr. Nancy, you can speak to that. But I think just really understanding the huge component that it has on your immune system is important.
Yeah, and coming over to Dr. Nancy, this isn't when doctors are ordering blood panels, like if folks are typically getting blood work and they're keeping up on their physician's appointments, they're not getting a blood D panel typically. You have to ask for that, you were saying, right?
Yep, you have to ask for it. And knowing that every single blood panel is different, you really have to request it. So knowing that vitamin D is so important, not only for your immune health, but also for your mood health. Your serotonin, that feel good mood, is produced with vitamin D. So if you don't have good amounts of vitamin D, optimal levels, which 90% of us don't, most of us are deficient, then guess what? You're not going to be feeling sustained up here, feeling good. So there is a huge correlation with how you feel and how your body is interacting and how you're operating throughout the day and how you're healing, right? What Kristy said. So you must look for it and know that it's a snapshot moment in time. Any blood work is just someone going in, taking a picture of your blood work, and not just taking that, oh, I'm low or I'm high, I'm fine, and then set it and forget it. You need to know that that is just one moment in time. You have to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm. Are there any food combinations that decrease the nutritional value of other foods eaten with? And I know one time we talked and you said like tea, caffeine can also like block you from absorbing nutrients sometimes.
Yeah. Your body is super, super intelligent, so it knows what to do. But if you kind of live a lifestyle that's like a hard rock and roll, whatever it is, if you just pull all-nighters, you drink a lot of alcohol, you eat a lot of processed foods, we know what we're doing that's not optimal, then your body is going to start gravitating towards the bones to grab the calcium, to alkaline the blood so that it's not inflamed. It's the body is very, very smart. So if you are knowing that you're not feeling great and you're fatigued and your memory is kind of, it's foggy, then you know you got to get your sleep. You gotta eat your antioxidant rich foods. You got to eat your dark leafy greens. You got to have some kind of fiber in there all the time to make the things go. Because if food is stuck in your gut, it's going to release toxins. If your kidneys, if your liver is overtaxed because you're drinking a lot of wine, and we're going to get to that, I'm sure, and sometime in the talk, then guess what? Your body is not going to go to recovery and repair. It's got to detox first. It's going to spend extra energy to detox all the things that are foreign in the body, including the foods that are sugar laden and high in saturated fat. And so we need to be able to feed it properly and keep it on a regular schedule, wake up and go to sleep at the exact same time every day. The body likes normalcy and a schedule.
Absolutely. And we had talked about like what we're eating and micronutrients and vitamin D, but also exercise, which doesn't have to be rigorous, crazy over the top, like going to the gym like a maniac exercise. It just means moving your body around, getting your heart rate up, building some strength. Kristy, are cardio and strength equally important when moving towards a more heart healthy life, or is one more than the other?
I actually say both. I mean, I don't know what Dr. Nancy would say. For me, just in the work that I do, I think what most people, not everybody, but most people focus on cardio, 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 and we lose a pound of muscle a year after the age of 30. And if we
Wow.
don't replace that, then that turns to fat, and fat burns 0 calories and muscle burns a lot more, whether you're sitting, standing, or sleeping. So, I mean, I've taught a lot of my clients to, because they're so worried about like bulking up or they don't, and it's not even about that. So important to build strength, especially for posture, for all of your bone health in general. You have to do resistance training, So, and that could anything look at home. I mean, you could get a set of dumbbells or a band. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a gym membership. You can do things at home. Push-ups, even starting on your knees, is really good. There's so many things, and there's a ton of YouTube videos. I feel like we are so, you can easily go on and find something that really speaks to you. And if you did that 3 times a week or 4 times a week, and then, yes, my philosophy is you got to move your body every single day, whether it's a hike or a walk. It doesn't have to be a spin class every day or something intense like that, but you really do need to move your body. Too many people are just sitting. They have sit down jobs all day. And there's ways around that, even during your lunch break, to eat and then go for like a 10-minute walk, even if it's outside, just get some fresh air. And when people start implementing that, they're more productive at work, they feel better, their mood is obviously better. So I say a combination of both, but I think for me, in my experience, the clients that I work with focus too much on cardio and not enough strength. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know when I was working in Germany, one of the things I loved so much about that was every single time they have a meal, then they go for a walk. That's why their lunch breaks are hours long. It's partly because there is this cultural expectation that you eat, you're present, you enjoy your food, and then you go for a walk because that's just how you live and that's how you maintain, a health and just vitality. Dr. Nancy, we're getting a question from someone asking specifically for post-menopause women. Are there exercises that help with aging heart health for post-menopause women?
Absolutely. Real quick on the cardio, we do need both, but if you kind of think of it as the cardio raises the heart rate and it helps your lungs to work harder. You have of the lungs, and we need to be able to move all the gunk out, and you do that with the cardio. So you're challenging and strengthening your respiratory and your cardio health. And then strength training, it uses resistance. You're pushing heavy things around to build your muscles and your tissues and your bones and your endurance and your power, but also to raise your metabolism and your muscle mass. And when you do that, in going into the hormones, postmenopausal, premenopausal, you will be able to keep your hormones more balanced, along with stretching and breathing, de-stressing. I cannot stress that enough. How you manage your stress is going to be one of the best ways to keep your hormones at a plateau. And we want that. We don't want the spikes, right? Another thing that you can do, let's push exercise aside, just getting sleep, good sleep. Even if you don't put on your running shoes and you got good sleep and you were able to manage your stress, I almost guarantee you your hormones won't fluctuate like it possibly can do. But gentle movements like yoga, stretching, really great. Strength training, also really good. It doesn't have to be CrossFit looking like strength training. You can literally just move heavy things around and get out of breath. It's very important that you do something that you enjoy, because if you're finding something that is a task and a chore, you're not going to stick to it. It's not going to make all of the feel good endorphins flood your system. You're not going to feel good. Keeping your hormones up is as easy as keeping to a schedule, doing it often, moving your body, getting the sleep. And yes, dancing and whatever it is that cultivates and manifests joy in yourself, do that. That'll keep your hormones up.
Just having a dance party in your kitchen with your favorite music every day, just jamming out while you're cleaning, even playing with your dog, anything like that, all of that makes a difference. Then you'll note that you're able to do a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Maybe you can dance a little bit more fervently. Yeah, I agree.
We are what we repeatedly do. So find something that you like to do.
Exactly. Is there anything that we can be doing to reverse the long-term damage from oxidative stress or poor life habits? Like, there's a lot of folks who feel like it's too late for them. Is it too late?
Never, ever. Our bodies are so resilient and it's adaptable. And the more we practice, we become what it is that we practice. You are how you live. So oxidative stress, if people don't know, it's just an imbalance between the free radicals, all the gunk, and our antioxidants in the body. So think about your body like a bank account, and you want to eat and give it credit, good credit, or more money, or more, credit, if you will, debt, right? So you want to put in all of the good, fresh vegetables, high fiber. Think of the rainbow. Think of all the colorful foods out there. The more color a fruit and vegetable has, probably the antioxidants are higher and the micronutrients are higher. So use that as like a calibrator when you're shopping in the produce aisle. And you want to just make sure that you're eating it with something that you like. So if you like to drizzle olive oil and a little bit of garlic and use your seasoning instead of the salt, great, do that. But make your own food because it becomes a part of you. Get in the habit of prepping and making it a priority. Because if we don't prep, if we do not prep, we are just going to run out of options. And then we're going to go on an emotional kind of search for something to satisfy whatever kind of emotion we're feeling right then. Hunger, hangriness. I don't know if that's an emotion, but yeah, you want to make sure you prep. So if you're on the go all the time, if you are a trucker, if you're on the move, make sure that you have all of your tools necessary. Learn what it is that makes it more efficient and easy for you to make the best choices.
Exactly. And I know you just mentioned about limiting sodium, and that seems to be the thing that everybody says, less salt, less salt, less salt. I learned something interesting, I think from you maybe even, that our taste buds regenerate after like 6 days. It's like, so if you're, and you know, eating salt, you need more and more and more, But if you could kind of cut it down within 6 days, that salt flavor comes through so much stronger. So by cutting it, it won't always be as hard as it is straight off, and actually can be quite easy to reverse within a week. What else is recommended other than just, lowering salt and maybe now that little learning nugget? But what else can they be doing to season food, make it enjoyable?
Seasoned food, use spices instead of salts, right? So your turmerics and all of your like curries and basil and cook and have fun with it. You can make sure that you cook and prep things that are not with labels, right? Try as hard as you can to only eat out or DoorDash or Grub on the weekends. Stick to dark leafy greens, stick to high fiber, low saturated fat as much as you can. Clean protein if you really need the protein, which we do. Stick to egg whites and fish. Fish is really good. Try to stick with things that don't need heat. A lot of times heat will kill a lot of the important micronutrients in the food. So, but you have to also know your own body. Everybody's body is different. So it's good to know your numbers. It's good to go to your healthcare practitioner and get your labs, whatever that is. If you know that you feel really lethargic and tired or bloated after you eat certain things, start writing them down. That's why journaling is really important. Then know that maybe your digestive system needs a little bit of a reboot. Probiotics, super important. Our immune system made with the gut lining of our belly. And so is our serotonin, right? We talked about the vitamin D level. So if your gut is all stuck, then you're not going to feel good and your immune system is going to go down. So probiotics and enzymes when you eat. A lot of these things are hand in hand with how you move your body. So it's not just eating foods, but it's also, that's why I'm a holistic practitioner. You got to look at all the things. But as much of the refined oils that we can push aside, the hydrogenated, the high fructose, the sugary stuff, as much as we can push that away, our taste buds will be able to shift, and we will start to change the way that we think about and our relationship with foods. Dairy is a big one. If we can push dairy aside, a lot of people that cheese, can't get rid of that cheese. So push that aside and just see how it goes for 1 week. Maybe goat cheese is better and easier on the belly, or maybe you take an enzyme when you eat with the goat cheese, or Greek yogurt or kefir that has more beneficial bacteria. That's super important. Alcohol. I'm so sorry. I'm going to say it. You got to cut the alcohol out because alcohol,
so much sugar.
Yeah. And it really, really hurts the body when we are trying to recover and repair our heart. But a lot of people love to eat whole grains. That's good. If whole grains don't bother you, opt for whole grains. Sprout them if you can. It enlivens the enzymes in it, so it's more bioavailable to our bodies, easier to digest. So those are just some of the things.
That is very helpful. Kristy, I'm going to ask you to jump in there too with some just suggestions of things that you love to eat that make sense. We're getting, a lot of questions about like, okay, just tell me what to eat. I just want to know what to eat. And then after we talk about what we're going to eat, we're going to talk about what some of the lies we've been told about eating are. Because like we've said before, the rules or whatever of eating change all the time. Something that you may have been told was good is not as good anymore. Something that's bad is not as bad. But just tell me a couple of things that you think folks could easily be putting together as meals right now.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me, so I'm a full-time working mom and I have 2 kids. And so I think people just say they're too busy. And I hear that all the time, I'm too busy. So on Sundays for me, and it could be Saturdays, my biggest advice always is to exactly try to get in more color. So, and try to eat more at home and less out. And the only way I think that's feasible to do is if you plan ahead. So on Saturdays or Sundays, I get a few recipes. I take a sheet pan, put some parchment paper on it so you don't have to clean up a lot, and put down asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever vegetables, Brussels sprouts, drizzle with a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil, season, and then just bake it in the oven so it has like a nice flavor, and then just keep them in the fridge. And then make a thing of quinoa or, whatever grain that you like, have those vegetables ready. The most important thing is that it's easy to do. If it's not, your best bet is going to pick something up on the way home, because when you're at night, you're tired. You think you're going to come home and cook, and you really don't. So it's really pre-planning, making sure that you have a good amount of like fish, you can batch cook that, bake a bunch of halibut or salmon, even turkey burgers, and you can like cut that up and put it in a salad, or you can like lettuce wrap. For those of you that are doing a lower carb, you can get like a good healthy whole grain bun, and you just rewarm them, typically on the skillet a little bit. I don't really like re-microwaving anything. I think
Right.
skillet or the oven. But the biggest thing is planning ahead. I think most people are just not doing that and making sure that they have a good amount of vegetables. Everybody has good intentions with vegetables, and then they sit in the fridge, and then most of the time they get thrown out. So you have to like put them together. Salads is a great one. If you get a bunch of leafy greens together, cut some cherry tomatoes in there, cut some different types of colored peppers in there, cucumbers, and then just have that in a container. Then you can throw that, put some of the quinoa in, maybe some garbanzo beans, and there you have, you know, and some chicken or whatever from the night before. Put a little Primal Kitchen dressing or your own dressing, and it's just easy. So I think when people start to see that it's actually not that difficult, they're willing to do it. But you got to make the time.
Yeah, I had to reorganize my entire refrigerator. I mean, we've been doing this series for quite a while, and I've learned so much from each one of these. But the idea of the crisper drawer being where vegetables go to die. So we just bought some clear containers, and now we put the vegetables up front, we put the fruit up front. Just because you think your refrigerator is supposed to be organized the way that your parents did, it doesn't mean that it is. And then anything that's a little bit, you know, beverages, we know we're going to go looking for that. So those waters and everything are in the crisper drawer now, because I'm going to naturally go looking for that. If you could see things, you're going to eat with your eyes first. And I promise you, at least it's worked for my family, you're eating a lot more fruits and vegetables. It's just more accessible to you. It's the thing you're seeing first. So organize your refrigerator the way that you want to, in a way that makes sense. So those things are really visible, not the way that you've been told your whole life it has to be organized. Obviously so helpful. We do have a quick question about what you guys think about coconut oil as a substitute for other oils. We've said avocado and olive oil a bunch here.
I have my own thoughts, Doc. You probably know. I mean, coconut oil is saturated oil, and that we just have to be clear on that. It is a saturated fat. I tell people, look, I love the taste of I'm a huge coconut fan. I love coconut water. I love coconut meat. I don't use a lot of it, but in certain dishes. So again, moderation in that. I would say I wouldn't slather. I think when first people thought coconut oil was so healthy for you, I think it was just, and you can overdo oils so quickly. You don't need that many. If you have a good pan set that doesn't stick, you shouldn't be using really overly oiling anything. I don't care if it's olive oil
Right.
or avocado oil. So I think that would be my take on it. You may have another answer, but it is certainly not a go-to with everything now.
Yeah, I agree. Coconut oil really does raise the blood cholesterol level in the body. It is still that saturated fat, right? And with that, if you have an overabundance, I know it was very, very popular for a while. It's in coffee, it's in this and that. Everything is keto, coconut. But the fatty plaque buildup that causes our artery walls to harden, that still takes place. So just be really mindful of when you eat, not just coconut oil, but things with a lot of oil in them, and then just limit it. Just limit it. Be very picky and choosy.
They were doing like spoonfuls of coconut oil at a period, though. I remember that being very popular with like Whole30 and different things way back, you know, a couple of years ago. I didn't know that about coconut oil until, of course, I became friends with y'all. But are there any other things that we think are good or that we think are bad that are good now that you've noticed recently? Anything like the coconut oil myth? I know eggs we thought were bad. Eggs can be good. Like,
should you drink coffee? And should you, like, I know. I always, because I've sat on many different supplementation boards and different marketing platforms, I just,
right.
Everybody kind of has their, what I think, an agenda. So just look at it from an omniscient, unbiased point of view, if you can, and just do your research. But everything in moderation, nothing in excess. Eggs, fine, they're fine for you. And even if you have cholesterol, if you stress, your body makes cholesterol, and it will raise your cholesterol more than if you ate 3 whole entire eggs with the yolk every single day. So
Right.
Managing your stress is just as important as taking the egg yolk away some of the time. And coffees, should you drink coffee? Should you not? Organic, if you can, coffee and teas, organic, those are my big go-tos for that myth. And I don't write it down, right? If you're really, really worried about if this is going to do this in the body, write it down and see how you feel 20 minutes after you eat. If it does nothing but make you feel good, then keep doing it.
Right. Is there on that, because we're getting another question now, is there a way to reduce cholesterol without medication? People are asking, like through food, through.
Yes.
Of course. Absolutely. I mean, 100% all the things that you just said. I mean, it is pretty amazing. My husband actually had high cholesterol and I helped him with that right away. I was like, oh no, you are not getting on high cholesterol medication. This is what we're going to do. I mean, really high fiber for sure. High fiber is important. Looking at the diet, you got to pull those saturated fats out. Limit them as much as you can. The cardiovascular stuff obviously is important, which he was already doing, but it was really revamping his diet. And 100% you can reduce cholesterol. Now, some of it is genetic, but even still, you can lower it a lot. Even just because you're predisposed for other conditions, that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. You might have to work harder. You might have to, if you're prone to diabetes, you're really going to have to be careful, or other things. So yes, no question, you can prevent heart disease.
I think by also what everything you said, and also maybe looking at garlic, adding garlic to your dishes is a really good one, and upping your omega-3s, foods and nuts, fish, sardines, mackerel, your Brazil nuts, your walnuts, olive oil. Use more of omega-3 rich foods into your foods when you're cooking. And then of course, cutting out the alcohol and cutting out the smoking. It's also very imperative to lowering your cholesterol naturally.
And I know you just said Brazil nuts, which is something that maybe folks hadn't really heard about before, but is also really great for folks experiencing thyroid issues as well, right? That can be all kind of go together, all these chronic illnesses.
Mm-hmm. But know the serving sizes, because Brazil nuts are pretty generous. They're pretty big. It's like 22 almonds is a serving size, 19 walnuts. I think it's like 9 Brazil nuts. Count them out. Stick to your serving size.
Right.
Because it can be a trigger for the whole thing. It's like, where did it go?
Right. And then speaking of foods that reduce inflammation, any top favorites that you guys go to?
I always say the darker the color, the higher the antioxidant level. So, for example, everybody makes smoothies, although I have a smoothie issue, because I think a lot of people got into smoothies and then they just pour on the sugar and add in every fruit possible. And then it just becomes a blood sugar, roller coaster. But dark cherries, you can find those at Trader Joe's or whatever market, but are usually in the frozen section. Even having a few of those are great. But the darker the fruit, the darker the vegetable, the higher the antioxidant level is sort of what I talk about.
Makes sense. We have talked a little bit, and we're getting a couple questions here too about, not eating from labels, and some of these things. Brazil nuts are expensive. Do you have any advice for folks who are maybe shopping on a budget or using their SNAP and WIC dollars to really get the most nutrition out of the foods that are available? Unfortunately, government programs don't fund everything, and getting funding for produce is something that I personally worked on for the last decade, and it continues to be difficult. But any tips for folks who are, on a fixed income and trying to just maximize their SNAP or WIC dollars?
I think if you buy in bulk and eat in season, eat locally, it'll cut down on your bill. Make your food. Hummus, for instance, there's hummus that is $6 for a tiny little container. Hummus is just chickpeas. You can just blend that into a blender. It can be very inexpensive if you buy the dry chickpeas and you soak them and you prepare them. Same with kale chips. A little tiny bag of kale chips is like $5, $6, $7, when you can make the entire whole bushel of side garnished kale that's now good for you. You can make that for cents, and you can drizzle whatever olive oil and season it how you like. You cut down on all of the things that you think that all of the bad stuff, because restaurant food and food that's pre-packaged and prepared, they usually have lower grade food. And to make it taste good, you have to laden on the salt and the fat and the sugar. So if you just prep your own food, buy in bulk, cut the coupons, like look at what's on sale, and then be really intentional. You can cut down on your family's bills.
Makes sense. Yeah. And we have a couple folks who are saying that they're actually, they garden, they grow some of their own foods. Is there anything that folks should be looking out for when they're gardening to ensure that they're getting a good nutrient dense piece of produce?
Gosh, I don't have a garden. I don't know. Do you,
Dr. Nancy?
I had to look this one up. Gardening, if you guys are gardening, did you know, this just in, you can add different things to your soil to raise the phosphorus and the boron, because we need boron and zinc and magnesium into your foods, because a lot of times we go to the grocery store, especially conventional, non-organic conventional foods don't have all the nutrients that you think it's supposed to have because of how we harvest and how we grow them. So banana peels, just putting banana peels on your soil, it raises the nitrogen and phosphorus in your food. Eggshells, if you kind of pulverize it into like a little ash, you put that over your soil, it can raise as well a lot of the different nutrients. Epsom salt raises the chlorophyll content, which is why matcha green tea is so much higher in chlorophyll content and antioxidants than regular green tea, because it's grown in the shade and it's darker green, but it's better for you. Ash, like from burnt wood ash, raises the potassium and the copper level. I've got
Dr. Nancy, you did it. You did the research there.
Wow. Maybe I should get some composting bins and a planter and some chickens.
Composting is cool, man. I'm telling you, composting is cool. So we've only got a couple seconds left here. Folks are asking for people who can't maybe, or they're not able, maybe they have a metabolic issue, maybe they just don't have access to this food. Is there any kind of supplement or heart healthy micronutrients, if you're not able to get it from your food, that you should consider? I mean, there are walls of supplements and nutrients. We know so many of them are crap, and there's some though that are incredibly useful. Maybe starting with Dr. Nancy, what do you think folks maybe need to supplement or could lean on a supplement for?
Heart health, omega-3s, fish oil, you start there. Huge. I would start there. Do your probiotics, because if you've got stuff stuck in your gut, no matter what you're spending on your food, if your body is not absorbing the nutrients, you're wasting your time and money, right? So you want to make sure that you're absorbing, it's bioavailable to you. So you got to repair your gut. Right.
And Kristy?
I also talk about fermented foods. I think that's an overlooked one that I think a lot of people, that is so incredibly important when you talk about gut health, because that is really the center, like you said. And so sauerkraut or anything like that, kimchi if you like, but really looking at fermented foods to add into your diet will make a huge difference for gut health for sure. I agree with everything you said. Omega-3s, probiotic for sure is super important. And just paying attention to your overall like digestive system. Like most people, I'll ask a client, like, do you have regular bowel movements? Or like, I don't know. It's like, that's something you should pay attention to. If you don't, you really need to start looking into your gut health, because it's going to cause some serious problems if you don't pay attention to that. So
yeah, and your B are really important too. Your B12 in particular boosts the gut health, but it's also really, really good for digestion. Your B vitamins overall.
Right, makes sense. And I know, especially with fermented foods, there are so many incredible recipes on YouTube and TikTok for free about fermented cucumbers and kimchis and all the kind of fun stuff that you can make that's incredibly inexpensive also, but just tastes good and is fun and is bright and colorful and interesting and just a little bit something different. So I definitely advocate for that. We are almost out of time. I learned so much today. A couple things that I heard that I want to make sure folks remember is your vitamin D and K2, asking for a vitamin D lab to understand where you're at, controlling your heart health through breathing, lowering your cortisol, lowering the stress on your body, and can be reversed in one generation. Inflammation is the root of injury, which really, it was something that struck a chord for me. I think that's going to be an easy one to let my folks know about. And disordered eating young, stress on the heart, slowing your heart rate, just implications to the way that these folks are going to be able to grow and wanting to get ahead of that. Eating colorful lunches, nuts and seeds, again, vitamin D for immunity, cardio and strength training, equally important, fiber, so important. And overall, taking care of your gut health is going to be where we start with to take care of all the rest of your health needs, including, of course, a healthy heart. The coolest thing I learned today was definitely that we could reverse heart conditions that we've seen through generations within a generation just by changing the way we eat, we move our body, and we breathe and sleep, which I just think is incredible. And remembering that eating should be pleasurable. So we learned some hacks. We heard about some meals, things that make sense. Definitely setting your refrigerator up in a way that makes sense for you. Doing a little bit of meal prep. You could just throw together one of those like everything garbage bowl salads that are awesome. I also advocate for people to invest in really nice knives if you can, or a cutting board. Sometimes having the right tools to cook can get you excited about cooking, and that is just as important. Like you said, a really solid nonstick pan that you don't put in the dishwasher the first time you use it and ruin it like I did. You never do that. Then you don't need as much oil, but you can get excited about cooking and want to cook more and show off for your partner or your friends. I want to thank you both so much for your time and sharing all these answers with us. Once again, I'm Spehar, the host of Under the Desk News on TikTok and Instagram. Dr. Nancy and Kristy, you can also find online if you have more questions, buy their books, sign up for their one-on-one coaching, and we will send all that info out to you in a wrap-up email. I, of course, want to thank Everything Food for having us on today. We will be doing our next session, which will be on kidney health, on March 15th. So make sure that you sign up and reserve a spot for that. And this recording will be available. I think Shauna gets them up pretty quick, like pretty much right after, definitely by the end of today. So if you missed anything or you came in later, you had to leave early, you'll be able to listen to all the great advice and hopefully join us again on March 15th. It was great seeing y'all. It was great seeing the chatter in the comments, so much more education going on. And we will see y'all next time on March 15th.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.